Past my intro, let's get into it, shall we? Well, topics of discussion for today are the basics of film history from Genesis to modern times. And let's see. The effect that the techniques that were invented in over the almost a century and a half history of film has on modern cinema as we see it today. Well, honestly, I want to look back into film history and also give you a few profiles on some of the best directors of the different eras in film. Alright, let's get started. The genesis of film is thanks to this man. That is Edward Baldridge. If you don't know who he is a photographer. In 1877, he captured the first moving picture. I have it right here. It is called The Horse. It is the very beginning of what we know today as the movie. Believe it or not, early film had more to do with animation than it does what we see today as modern cinematography. Now, what you really want to understand is it's just a bunch of stills rapidly moving in succession. It is a basic flip booklet is how this medium got started. The flip book animation is actually key to the film history. All right, let's bring it into the next slide. Well, let's see. We have a tech boom in 1888. Thomas Edison. You probably know this guy is the biggest fake in history.
Oh.
Yes, I'm a Tesla follower.
And I think he took credit for other people's work there.
Honestly, yeah. I mean,
I know he had a team of inventors there.
If you look into the history, even with the stuff that he's directly credited with, he's had it stolen. Well, here's the thing. He actually invented the first cinematic camera. Edison also created the kinetoscope. You can see it, if I'm not mistaken, right up there. There's the guts of it. And let's see. It's a single-person movie viewer. It actually did have a short reel that constantly played.
Yeah, those are the film.
Yeah, those are the films. And as you can see, it looks more like honestly, it looks more like an old photo processor to me. You know, one of those old slide viewers. If you've ever seen one, they look an awful lot like this. Well, what you don't realize is that is actually 8mm film right there, running through the machine. If you ever shot an 8mm, it is hard. You actually have to take a razor to the film. It's hectic.
I've edited it.
Ooh. Well, then you get the let's see. Hold on. Then you get the Vitaphone, which gave us our first ever movie projector, and then, actually, I believe that is the Vitaphone. Is that not?
Yep.
Yeah, I did get a picture of it. There's the Vitaphone, you guys. As you can see, it is big. It is clunky. Old-timey technology at its finest. And last but not least, the Lumiere brothers, August and Louis, presented a projected film in 1897, creating what we know today as the cinematic experience. There's the Lumieres right there. On the left, we have Louis. On the right, we have Auguste. And let's move on, shall we?
And I should mention that was in Paris.
Yeah, that was in Paris, France. In fact, I believe their original cinema, the site of their original cinema is now a historical landmark. Yes. And we move on to, well, I'm showing off the tech boom a little bit more. There's a kinetoscope parlor. which is a big thing. It's basically the first movie theater. And of course, Vodafone again. The popularization of film. 1902 saw adaptations of Jules Verne's A Trip to the Moon, which actually counts as one of the first ever sci-fi films. Then we have the Great Train Robbery from Edwin S. Porter. Actually, this is the genesis of your westerns. Well, the western sparked the popularization of the format, which leads us to the modern film of today. Any questions so far? Anyone? No. Alright. The silent era. Okay. You guys have made a silent film in film production classes, have you not?
I don't think they're there yet. They're probably in 2050 or production 1, which is studio.
Okay, so that's production 1 now. Thank you for that update.
No problem.
Well, if you get to your field classes, you're probably going to be expected to make one of these. There is no dialogue, there is only music and title cards, and whatever your actors can do. If you want to do slapstick, this is the best time to do it. Well, as you can see, silent films are often accompanied by pianists, orchestras, or even lectures like this boring one right here. Let's see. They always give nice title cards, and they had a certain stylistic flair to them back then. It wasn't just, text. It was text on a vignette. Well, as you can see, a lot of them were also accompanied by phonographs, which is why I have this right here. That is an old school phonograph cylinder. If I'm not mistaken, that was actually made by Edison himself. Let's see. 1907 saw the advent of the Nickelodeon. So named because guess what? You can get any movie you wanted to see at the moment for a nickel. I wish movies were that expensive. Well, that cheap these days, Oh man, it would be epic. Let's see. Well, of course, you have your popular genres: action, adventure, comedy, and you get people like, say, Charlie Chaplin, a few other people. But here's the thing you don't know: a lot of silent films, especially in the action genre, starred women. Because even in the beginning of film, they understood in Hollywood that sex sells. And I'm going to move on. Of course, this covers from 1907 to 1927. Did I miss anything? And no. Oh, also, a big thing was vaudeville. You could finally record vaudeville performances and actually show them off in theaters. Honestly, it was essentially the replacement of the stage show with the sign. Alright, we have D.W. Griffin's Birth of a Nation. Well, actually, yeah, that was right. It was a controversial movie that actually had a lot of racism in it. In fact, you could say it was a movie covering the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. Which, if I'm not mistaken, I have not watched the entire film, but I was so turned off by its racial insecurities that I could not bring myself to watch the whole thing. I left a link up there, Dr. Conway, if you don't want to play it. I think we can pass this, right?
It's fine with me.
Alright, so around this time, the 1920s and the 1930s, we have the rise of the Big Five. You see them up there, you know them well. They are MGM, 20th Century Fox, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and the now defunct, if I'm not mistaken, RKO Pictures. The 1920s.
They're gone.
Yeah, they are gone. And also, we have the little three down there. That is Columbia, United Artists, and Universal. Now, let me ask you something. What's Universal famous for? Does anyone know? Monster movies. You got your Bela Lugosi. You got your Boris Karloff. Everything out there under the Universal monster, the Universal Dark line, right now that they're remaking, was actually birthed here. You actually got the original Mummy from Universal. Not the Brendan Fraser one. That's kind of just a comedic parody. Let's see. They actually started to embrace censorship, which is a big thing. A huge medium like film, you have to censor yourself. And if you'll give me just a moment here. United Artists, it closed down somewhere in the early 2000s, right?
I'm not sure, but I think that's about right.
Yeah. But, yeah, you actually do see quite a few of the big names starting to form this time. A lot of, does anyone have a question? I could have sworn I heard somebody talking. Alright. So, you see a lot of the major film houses start to come up. Hollywood becomes a big name in the game. In fact, it's the biggest name in the game and still is today. Although, arguably, Georgia's beginning to eclipse Hollywood.
I thought you were going to tell us who started United Artists.
Oh, yeah.
Chaplin,
Yeah,
Douglas Fairbanks,
It was
and
Chaplin.
Mary Pickford.
Yeah.
There may have been a fourth person, but I can't remember.
Actually, it was Chaplin, Fairbanks, Pickford, and DeMille, I think.
You may be right. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so here we go. We have the invention of the talkie. Does anyone know what they used to do for, what they used to do for sound? They actually had what's called the Valdosta, which was invented by the Warner Brothers. Ironically, one of the biggest CGI using companies today started out in sound. Which honestly, that is a beautiful thing to me. It was originally difficult for sound to be put on in movies, but soon the actual process to sync sound to film became kind of evident. They actually would transcribe the audio onto the film as you see here. Does that look familiar to you? Any of you editors out there? It looks like Adobe, but you know that's actually it's an analog soundtrack. And it's actually ingrained into the edge of the film so that both sides are synced. Right there. It looks like an editing timeline. Honestly, looks like more Windows Movie Maker than Adobe now. God. But as you can see, it's just chilling on the side there. And what's worse is, before this, if you got sound, it was poorly synced. It was like watching a very out of sync YouTube video. Like, honestly, it was bad. Like, I've seen a few of these. I'm an old film buff. Now, you can get dialogue or live music just because of this technology. Alright, we have a director of note for the silent era. I mentioned this guy earlier, Cecil B. DeMille. This man was a noted director, producer, and editor, and has his name in the credits of 80 films spanning 40 years. His filmography includes Male and Female, The Ten Commandments, and King of Kings. If you haven't seen The Ten Commandments, do yourself a favor. It's a great film. And I'm not talking about the remaster with Charlton Heston.
The original one?
Huh?
You're talking about the original one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Honestly, if you feel like actually going and taking a tour of film history, the Smithsonian's film exhibits are actually pretty good.
Are they online?
No, but you can find them on YouTube if you know how to look for them.
All right, good, thank you.
Alright, well let's move on, shall we? Our first talkie, ladies and gentlemen. Al Jolson's The Jazz Singer, directed by Alan Crawford. This is the story of what is essentially a young Jewish man who is trying to make it big as a jazz singer in opposition to his beliefs. I believe I have a trailer or a clip. Dr. Conway, if it's possible, could you play that for me? Good 3 minutes should do. Alright.
Just know that it's slow today.
I understand. Hey, it just adds to my time.
Okay.
Oh.
You have it.
Quick X.
Why don't I go back and get it?
Yeah.
Let me try again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that.
I'm not going to touch the cursor. The computer
Still
does not
keeps doing
The computer does not like. No, I don't think it likes me, sir. In fact,
You have the clip.
yeah, I have the clip.
So this is the jazz singer, right?
Yeah.
See if I can
Why don't you copy it and put it in Google Chrome? That'll run YouTube a little better than Edge will.
Oops.
Oh,
I
that's
was
fine.
afraid to.
It's
Is that
fine.
you or me?
That was you, sir.
All right.
I got it.
Tell you what, why don't we let the jazz singer go?
I'll do that.
It's a 1920s movie about a guy who follows his dream and walks a little bit away from the temple to become a pop singer.
Yeah, and honestly, back then, jazz was the popular music of the day. And this man, Al Jolson, just to give you a little bit of music history, one of the greatest in the field, and honestly, one of the few white men that could pull off jazz at the time. Alright, we have the golden age. This is the rise of film as a hugely popular medium in the U.S. There's over 90 million patrons in theaters per week at the height of this. And genres such as the musical film, horror, thriller, and a lot of propaganda films became commonplace. As you can see, I have Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Great movie. I completely agree with checking it out. Please do. You'll be doing yourself a favor. In fact, it comes on TCM. And if I'm not mistaken, what did I have there?
North by Northwest.
North by Northwest. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of blind, sir. Alfred Hitchcock, man, we'll get to him later. He is a wonderful person in the area of film. And we have the rise of colored film and the resurgence of the Western. This is when you started getting a lot of your base, your major westerns like your Roy Rogers, your John Waynes, your big names in the world of, well, Italian westerns like Sergio Leone, and I mean, honestly, that's great.
Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah, Eastwood. Eastwood. Yeah.
Mr. Spaghetti Western.
Yeah, Sergio Leone.
Right. The director.
Mm-hmm. And we move to what in the it's doing it again. And right into Alfred Hitchcock. This man was the master of suspense, and I don't mean that just as a nickname. He could pull off a black and white shot as well as a colored shot in such a suspenseful manner that you were hanging on the edge of your seat. He knew how to make a pulse-pounding film, and he will go down forever as one of the greats. As you can see, I have The Lady Vanishers, which is one of his original films. I have Vertigo, which is, my God, at the height of Hitchcock's popularity, Vertigo was one of the best. But nothing really beats North by Northwest, in my opinion. He really had his scenes on point. And Jimmy Stewart, man. Jimmy Stewart. Anyway, on from Hitch. He's a good British man. He actually did a lot of work for. He did a lot of work in Hollywood to get a lot of things off the ground. In fact, there's a lot of people who had, Alfred Hitchcock's finger in their pie, when it came to production.
I thought you were going to say you also did a lot of TV shows.
Oh,
Usually
yes.
kind of spooky
Yes.
or horror or weird
In
stuff.
fact, his last show, I believe, was CBS, and it was the Mystery Hour, or
Really?
something like that, by Alfred Hitchcock. It was for CBS. All right, let's move on. In living color, color was implemented in film originally in 1909 with Chromatica. Well, it's an additive process altering black and white film through the use of spinning red and green filters. It was primarily used in the United Kingdom and saw its discontinuation in 1914. For 5 years, that's actually pretty decent in film with technology. Of course, it's sped up since then, but honestly, to see anything of use more than 2 years now is something to behold. Well, then you get the rise of original Technicolor. Now, here's the thing. What you don't realize is there's a 2 aperture process that comes with classic Chromatica.
Somebody's cell phone.
Okay. Basically, what Technicolor did is it added, at first, two filtered apertures that allowed the color to actually be merged with the film. Later, they actually tried to dye color into the film, but they couldn't hold a soundtrack. But the last process introduced a 3-color model, a 3-strip model, wherein our CMYK color spectrum here came into existence to help kind of create the illusion of living color on black and white film. Well, you guys probably know that there are quite a few films that are famous for using Technicolor, but what you don't really realize is it was Disney's go-to. They were an early adopter, and I believe, like Watership Down, a lot of the classic Disney films like Snow White and other things use this system. But, if I'm not mistaken, okay, yeah, there it is. Our first ever movie to actually be recorded in Technicolor, and this is a base in history, is Gone with the Wind in 1930. Oh, well, actually, yeah, in 1939? Yeah.
Yeah, Snow White 37,
Gone with the Wind, yeah. Snow White, back in 1937, was actually an early adopter. It was one of the first animated films by Walt Disney, and pretty much made him a household name. And then you get Fantasia in 1940. Now, the milestone that Fantasia actually did was more of an audio thing, because it was the first time symphonic sound was set to music. It was the first movie ever to include an orchestra piece that was actually specifically designed for it.
It was a music video of classical music.
Yes, it was literally Mozart on MTV.
With the Disney touch.
Yeah. In fact, I believe the clip I decided to show, the video I decided to show was the Night on the Mountain.
Night on Bald Mountain.
Night on Bald Mountain.
Good piece.
Yes, excellent. And of course, we have another little thing to show off the example of piracy.
Shall I try?
I chose The Wizard of Oz. I really hope it plays. And anyone who's probably been a film major for more than 5 minutes knows this thing really well.
Not gonna do it for me.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're gonna have to actually rewind it back just a bit, sir. It's a little too early.
All the way?
Yeah, just all the way back. This is the old black and white sepia tones. This is the old version of Technicolor. Now, what you don't realize is all of this was painted brown to take full advantage of the new system.
It will undergo
That's-
full screen.
That's
Sorry.
That's Judy Garland right there. One of the best singers of the 1930s, 1940s. Hung out with the Rat Pack. And I'm going to let this speak for itself. Ah, beautiful scene. See that changeover from color to black and white? It actually symbolizes the banal becoming unreal. The author himself actually went on record saying that it was that the original story was written for his niece who died, and he wanted to make sure that she lived forever in a dream of her own making.
It was Frank L. Baum.
Yes, that is Frank Baum. All right, and I think that's enough for that.
Good.
Beautiful piece, guys. And let's flip over here. Well, this is where you get into the Cold War, the 1950s, the Red Scare, Joseph McCarthy and his witch hunts. What you don't realize is the witch hunts took place in Hollywood too, and it caused a bunch of popular directors to really be scared to publish their films in the U.S., especially if they contain communist ideas. Well, here's the thing. The House actually got involved in Hollywood, and some major directors were deported. That saddens me greatly, but it's the truth. And I'm going to move to the next slide. Oh. Well, the industry gets some regulation from that. We have Roth v. the United States, which allowed for the settings of obscenity standards. This is why we have the FCC. This is why we have the MDIA rating system, which you can actually see over there. The far left, the far right picture there, that's the MPAA seal. And what you see is basically ratings from G to R and NC-17. They added another rating. I'm sure we all know it. We're all college students.
I think that was around 1967.
Yeah, that was 67. In fact, I do believe the first ratings were actually put on the boxes of the film.
Really? The film cans?
The film cans, yeah. Alright. Then, in 1976, we have the advent of the VCR. Now, what this allowed people to do was not only take their favorite films home, but also record new ones that played on TV or actively, came into existence for TV. Well, the VCR had a competitor in the 1980s, Sony's Betamax. If you guys don't know what Betamax is, it's because it's a dead format, and let me tell you what killed it. Betamax had superior audio and video playback, but one thing it could not beat the standard VHS-N was, and if you don't know this, I'm kind of surprised. Maybe they taught you this in 2050, maybe they didn't. the length of playback. Honestly, the VCR won out, which led to the DVD. Honestly, we have a section of postmodernism here. Here's its definition. It's honestly characterized by a lot of landscapes, a lot of existential drama, and a great many questions about the human existence.
Yeah, think of the Matrix.
Yeah,
question everything.
Think of the Wachowskis. Think of Eyes Wide Shut. Think of, honestly, well, what I'm about to show, which is Blade Runner. 1982 film directed by Ridley Scott. Does anyone know who Ridley Scott is?
He's the director for Aliens, is he?
Yes.
The original one, yeah.
Well, Aliens is James Cameron.
Aliens is James Cameron. Alien 3 is Ridley Scott, and I believe he came back for Resurrection as well. Not to mention Prometheus. Alright, and you had questions
In the corner.
in the corner there.
Going back from a couple of slides, you said the Betamax failed because of the length. Was it because it was too short, or the VCR was too long?
The VCR was able to support long playback. The Betamax was not. There was an actual limit to, there was a limit to VCR playback. It was actually ludicrously short, which required the creation and maintenance of a larger tape library for longer movies.
So you would probably have to buy 2 discs. And
Yeah.
It was awkward in the middle of a movie to get up and change it.
Yes, not to mention the Laserdisc was around in this time. I'm sorry I didn't put that, but it had the same problem. It could actually do longer playback. It could actually do longer playback. It could do more sophisticated sound playbacks and video playback. But you would have to stop it in the middle of a movie, flip it, load it, and switch it back on. Well, as you can see, Blade Runner is the story of, well, a replicant hunter named Deckard. And I just want to show you a little clip of that world right now.
It'll take a while to do.
I apologize for this, sir. I shouldn't have included so much media.
Oh, there's the ad.
Yep. Come on. Come on, man. I was actually going to show the void comp test, which is actually how you prove someone is a replicant.
It'll come. It'll just take a while.
And apparently it doesn't play for us today.
Please don't move.
I apologize. In fact, if you like, I can get this done. Well, Dr. Conway already has a copy, and you guys can view these clips on your own.
Sorry. I
Um,
might play it at the end.
all right.
Carry on, sir.
Thank you. Oh, what in the? Was that literally? Sir, I had something at the end, but it did not go through. Yeah. Huh.
So there's one more slide?
Yeah, there is one more slide. We're at slide 29, right?
Yeah. Drag on the.
All right. Well, basically, what I wanted to do, I'll just take it. I'll just take it from here.
Okay.
We have the advent of the DVD in the early 2000s,
So here it is.
which it actually, yeah, I did Kubrick. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Stanley Kubrick, the most anal director in film history. Ladies and gentlemen, this man was a high-power producer. He was one of the biggest rock star directors of all time. He did 2001: A Space Odyssey, as you can see. A Clockwork Orange, which is another dystopian film from the postmodern era. And I Like Chuck, which I had previously mentioned, which honestly got into a lot of occult activities in this movie. It's actually one of the most acclaimed postmodern documentary, well, not documentaries, but postmodern films of all time. And if it'll let me, I'm going to move on to the blockbuster. Blockbusters, as you know, are big budget films that honestly make a mass amount of money regardless of their overall success. They have existed since the time of Cecil B. DeMille, but were more common in the early 2000s. Most of these were action movies, huge dramatic pieces, things that are large in scale. And our blockbuster director here is Steven Spielberg. You guys know him. He's one of the biggest directors of all time. He founded DreamWorks, and he's a writer, producer, director. And his filmographies include Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and the acclaimed Schindler's List. Alright, then we move on to, I'm sure, interactive media, video games. I actually took pictures for this. Those are my systems right there. Yeah, so video games started off in the early 70s with Atari's Pong. It was literally a little dot moving with two lines that bounced off of each other. Back then, it was a coding marvel. Let's see. Thanks to E.T., sadly, the movie tie-in game did not actually fare as well as the one in the box office, so it nearly killed the industry. In fact, there were rumors saying that they actually burned an entire warehouse full of cartridges for this game. This is what killed the 2600, but gave rise to NES. I'm sure you guys know who Nintendo is. They started off making Hanafuda cards. What you don't know is Hanafuda is a Japanese card game similar to our own, well, Go Fish, to be honest. And it went on to play a large role in rekindling our love for interactive media. In fact, their little mascot Mario did more to revitalize the gaming industry than any other mascot in existence. Okay, from that came the question? Questions? No? Okay. Basically, it started out pixelated, but as time's gone on, they became a cinematic experience. How many people own consoles here? Ah, a lot of you.
1/3 of the class.
1/3 of the class. So you can attest to how cinematic gaming experience has gotten. In many ways, it has actually become the replacement for the movie. It is an interactive movie wherein the player controls the story. And now we have, from these humble beginnings, we have the great overblown machines that cost $400 a pop and can play just about anything from DVDs to, well, YouTube. And of course we have the rise of DVDs and streaming services. Digital video disc or DVD replaced the VHS. Digital prints were often higher quality and could contain special features. The end of the 2000s saw the debut of the streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and of course our own darling YouTube. Thank these people for all of these great advancements, because honestly without YouTube we wouldn't have the grand tutorial workspace that we have. It is literally the digital library of Alexandria for video editors. And last but not least, thank you all. Special thanks for Dr. Conway to allowing me to teach. And last but not least, I'd like to quote an old teacher of mine when I say, go forth, be brave. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Josh.